All right, let's talk about mortgage note investing. It's this world with absolutely massive potential, right? But it's also just littered with financial traps. So today, we're going to break down the 10 biggest, most common, and most costly mistakes that investors make so you can learn how to spot them and how to sidestep them completely. Look at this question. It's direct for a reason, you know? So many investors jump into this space with these huge hopes only to watch their money just vanish. We're going to get into exactly why that happens and, more importantly, how you can make sure it doesn't happen to you. So here's what we're going to cover. First, we'll talk about why this feels like a minefield for so many people. Then we'll dive into the big mistakes, starting with skipping your homework and completely botching the numbers. After that, we'll get into how people mismanage the asset after they buy it, and we'll wrap it all up with the one thing that really separates the winners from the losers: patience. Okay, so let's set the stage here. From the outside, note investing looks super appealing. But for anyone who's unprepared, it really is a minefield. The mistakes are incredibly common. But here's the good news. They are 100% avoidable if you know what to look for. So what's the real problem here? What's driving all these mistakes? Honestly, it comes down to FOMO, the fear of missing out. An investor sees a deal, it sounds amazing, and they just rush in. They believe everything the seller says without checking a single fact for themselves. Their very first purchase is all about excitement, not analysis. And that's the heart of the trap. And that leads us right into our first mega mistake, just skipping the homework. This is all about those huge errors that people make before they even click buy. This is where the foundation for success, or for total failure, is laid. Look, due diligence is not optional. It's everything. And that means really digging in. You've got to check out the borrower's history, the real condition of the property, and the legal status of the loan. But most important of all, you need a title report to confirm your lien position, which is basically just your place in line to get paid if the property sells. Skipping any of this, it can be an absolute disaster. And here is a perfect and kind of painful real-world example from our source material. An investor bought a loan on a property that had 2 separate parcels of land, but he never ordered a title report. A week later, he finds out the taxes were delinquent on that second parcel, and boom, it was sold at a tax sale. He literally lost a huge chunk of his collateral, all because he skipped one simple, crucial step. Another huge piece of homework is understanding state foreclosure laws, because they are not all the same, not even close. In a judicial state, you have to go through the courts. That means more time and a lot more money. A non-judicial state, much faster and way cheaper. If you don't know the difference, there's no way you can calculate your real costs, and that means you are almost guaranteed to overpay for the note. So the golden rule is this: your information has to be accurate and it has to be local. Please do not trust some random person in a Facebook forum or a guru's generic advice. The only person who can give you reliable foreclosure timelines and costs is a local attorney who actually does this stuff in that specific market. All right, on to our second mega mistake. Because even if you do all your homework perfectly, you can still crash and burn if you botch the numbers. Bad math is a surefire way to guarantee a loss before you even own the asset. I love this analogy. Relying on some simple formula like, oh, I just pay 50 cents on the dollar, is exactly like buying a foreclosed house without having any clue what it's going to cost to fix it up. You're just guessing, and that is a terrible way to invest your money. Because those generic formulas completely ignore the real costs. You've got legal fees, property taxes, maybe even force-placed insurance, which is this super expensive coverage the lender buys when the borrower lets theirs lapse. Then, your loan servicer charges you extra for a defaulted loan, and you might have to pay for basic upkeep on the property. Every single one of these costs just eats away at your potential profit. And understanding your numbers is absolutely critical for your exit strategy. Okay, picture this. Someone can't sell their house. So to get their asking price, they offer the buyer's seller financing with a 6% interest rate. They get to avoid a $20,000 price cut. Sounds smart, right? But here's the catch. A 6% note in today's market might only be worth 60 cents on the dollar. So their $200,000 note is really only worth about $120,000. That's an $80,000 loss. Way worse than just taking the price cut. All because they didn't understand note valuation. Okay, so you did your homework, your numbers are solid, you buy the note. Phew, the hard part's over, right? Wrong. The real work is just beginning.
Our third mega mistake is mismanaging the asset, assuming your job is done. First, let's just quickly define a key player here, the loan servicer. This is the third-party company you hire to handle all the administrative stuff for the loan. Collecting payments, sending out statements, and making sure you're compliant with all the rules.
And you have got to understand this distinction. A servicer is a task doer. They are not your asset manager. They will not come up with a strategy for you. They won't take initiative. This idea that you can just buy a note and let the servicer put it on autopilot is a massive and super common misconception.
The source material uses this puppet master analogy, and it's perfect. You are in control. You're the one pulling all the strings. The servicer just does what you tell them to do. You have to actively manage them and give them exact instructions, whether that's start the foreclosure or offer a loan modification.
Good asset management also means building a portfolio that can take a punch. That means diversifying geographically, mixing some of those faster non-judicial states with the slower judicial ones to balance out your risk and cash flow. You should also diversify by loan type. And this is so important. For every single note you buy, you need to have multiple exit strategies planned out from day one. Because trust me, your first plan almost never works out perfect. This brings us to our final and maybe the most important section. This isn't about paperwork or numbers. It's about psychology. It's about adopting the winning investor mindset. And the biggest psychological mistake people make is expecting to get rich quick. We've all seen them, right? The online gurus promising you'll make a fortune overnight. The author of our source material has a pretty blunt take on this. It's the dumbest thing he's ever heard. This idea that you can just buy a note, collect a couple payments, sell it for double your money, and do that 10 times a year, it is pure fantasy. So let's look at reality for a second. This here is a best case, fastest possible timeline for a non-performing note in a non-judicial state. You buy in October. By the time the loan gets transferred and all the legal notices go out, you might file for foreclosure in March. The actual sale could happen in May. That's already 7 to 8 months, and that's if absolutely everything goes perfectly. So what's a realistic time frame? Well, the typical life cycle for a distressed note is about 12 to 18 months, and sometimes it can take years. This is a game of patience. It is not a race. So to wrap this all up, the path to success is actually pretty simple to describe, but it takes real discipline to follow. It all boils down to these 4 things. Do your homework, get your numbers right, manage your assets actively, and above all else, be patient. So we've laid out the map of the minefield for you. We've shown you exactly where the traps are. Now you have the information. The final question isn't really about what you know. It's about what you're prepared to do. Are you ready to apply the kind of discipline that this type of investing really, truly requires?